First off, I would like to thank the director George Massimillo, if I'm saying your name correctly, for watching Waning Poetic. Chase Lehocky here at the Blue Futon reviewing Waning Poetic. What's it about? Pretty simple premise. Okay, we're in 2024, right? And we have a brother and sister walk into a storage unit. Boom. Something happens. Someone else comes in the storage unit. They're like, we don't know you. And they're like, I don't know you either. Wait a minute. He's from like 96 or 94, if I'm not mistaken. And then someone else comes in. We have 85. Then we have someone else. We have 70. Then we have someone else. Someone from the 60s. And then maybe a janitor comes in. We don't know who this janitor is. But anyway, they need to figure out why they're in this time portal continuum. And do they connect through in and throughout? So, to like this film, I thought it was a fun little film. I do think we need to, as a society as a whole, when it comes to movies and watching, not look at the look of the movie. And what I mean by that is when you look at a movie like this, and another movie I watched through in January called Roadkill, and let's just say you watch The Watchers, right? Very different budgets, and I do think people scrutinize movies on how they look and what they're supposed to look like Deer Hunt 86 as well. And I don't think it matters on how the movie looks. It talks about how you are trying to get your point across. I do think this movie gets its point across pretty well. I do think there are some characters I was a little bit annoyed with, and maybe some of the editing was a little jarring. And what I mean by that is we would focus on one character and we would cut to another, and maybe have them have a one shot, like a wide shot of them talking instead of doing the jump cuts would have been a little bit better. But hey, that's just a little nitpick for what this story is. This story does talk about generational divide. And when people hear that, and sometimes I kind of cringe when I hear that, because when I hear about millennials, Gen Z, blah, 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 boomers, I cringe at these stereotypes, or if you want to put it, labels they put on people, because not all boomers are the same. Not all Gen Zs are the same. Not all millennials are the same. But this movie does a good way of saying, like, look, in the 60s, it's very different from where we're at today. In the 60s, it was kind of normal to drop out of high school, be a blue-collar worker, and kind of just say what you want and don't hide behind things. And, of course, then you have the hippies. Then you have the 80s chick, which to me, the 80s chick was probably the most annoying or forced character, where she was trying a little bit too hard. Because this hippies chick from the 70s, I really enjoyed her dynamic of, like, kind of being chill. I like the 60s, Dean Martin kind of look, and it really was fun because that's what I resonated with the most. Just because it cuts through the bullshit. Like, this is bullshit. Like, we got to figure this out and just be level-headed. And the 90s guy, he was probably the most fun to watch because it seemed like he was hamming it up the most. Then you do have the new age, the social media. And I do think the new age social media and talking to the past is kind of funny because, the 90s guy, one of the good things is, like, Facebook comes up and you talk about what people post, what people like, and people post bikini pics. And he's like, wow, you're a hot babe. And they're like, why would you say that? It's like, well, you're putting this out in the world. And is hot babe really a sexist remark? No. To me, it's more like, no, you are hot. And I think that's happy. I think we chastise people for, complimenting on people, but then when you compliment them, it's not the right compliment. And I do think that there is a point that this movie is trying to make for that reason. For me, I'm going to put it out there. I know it's probably not what the director wants to hear, but when we see this Miss Alabama thing, right, of how she wins, that's all I'm going to say. And I do think that this story could go that route of, what do you want to post? What are we as a society, celebrating? Should we really be celebrating someone that's 500 pounds? And at a point, is it time to literally be like, grow up, that's not healthy? And this is kind of the same way where you talk about pot in this, when you talk about cigarettes, like, don't do the cigarettes. Even though this says it's doctor approved, shit, it changes in 50 years. Stop smoking. You will thank me for it. And this is kind of the same way of, like, this body positivity. We'll go with the cigarette. Heart disease, clogged arteries, exercise problems, joint problems, bone problems, meniscus problems, your body holding. You have to wear those socks, circulation issues. It's the same way. It's like, it's time for the doctors to suck it up and say, that is not good for your health. And this is the same way where, also with the main girl, right? The main girl's from the social media, and she's always nagging. She always is putting her problems on other people. It's not her fault. She always thinks she's like chastising people. She's reflecting on other people saying, oh, you're doing that because of me, and that vice versa. Because there's something that happens at the very end of the movie where, with her brother, and I think the other two guys are just, they don't care. And I think that's what the majority of people is, and what this director's trying to say is, most people don't care. You are stuck in this society. You're so stuck with what other people are going to say about you. And that's like what Twitter is, maybe what they said 11% of the population, and it dwindles down. Maybe it went increase when Elon Musk took over. But you'll be shocked. The random person on the street has their own fucking problems that they don't care that you're gay. So if you're walking or whatever, that, you know, you're walking down the street, right? I'm walking in New York and I pass by a person. Don't care. What happens is when you forcefully put it out on social media, then you have people comment on it. Then you chastise people for commenting on it. Or you're saying, how dare you comment on my appearance? Then don't beg for likes. Don't beg for subscribers. I'm willing to like talk to every single person on this channel. Even if it's like, you know, so much hate. I got so much hate for a Road 96 review. I got some hate for Furiosa, for me saying it's such a mid movie. Some people agree with me, but some people are adamant, saying like, how dare you call this a 50% movie? It's okay. It's called an opinion. It's something that people need to realize. And I think that's why I like the 60s guy the most, because he's like, some things you just keep in your home. Some things you don't have to put out in the world. And it's okay if you don't have to. Sure, you could put a little stuff in there, like if you're talking to your friends, your family on the Facebooks. You know, if you only have like, for me, my Facebook count is maybe 400, 500 friends max. Seriously, it's probably even less than that. But I just put out stuff for fun, like these YouTube channels, or YouTube videos, sorry. And I just think that's what we need to realize as a society of this generational divide. Yes, the generations before us will coexist with us, and they will hop on the social media train because they do have a fun thing about the 60s guys doing that. But at the same time, if someone comments on you, calls you gorgeous, sexy, a babe, like righteous, is that really something to frown on people or get pissed off about if you're willing to put what you are online? So overall, Waning Poetry, I think it's a good generational divide movie. Yes, like I said, my little nitpicks are the 80s girl was a little too 80s, and like she was forcing it a little bit too much. It's like watch Back to the Future and how like Marty McFly did it or something like that. And there was a lot of good versions about Star Wars, like Back to the Future, Terminator, so I did enjoy that as well as being a movie person. And I guess I could say some of the editing, I feel like maybe like, you know, too much focus on one person to like transfer over, and if they did a wide shot instead, it would have like flowed a little bit better. But I'm not a director of this. I had a good time with this movie. I'm gonna lie though, I went in, I was like, oh, what's this movie trying to do? But when it actually ended, I really enjoyed the overall package. So Waning Poetic will receive a 4.5 out of 5 with Futons. He goes at 90%. And like I said, I'm not like doing this because, oh yeah, the director gave it to me and he's the writer as well. No, it is something where, I don't know if it's a passion project, but he knew what he wanted to say. He told it in an hour and a half. He didn't bullshit the audience. He didn't like waste our time. He gave good dialogue-esque moments. So how can I fault it for that when it's a simple one-room movie? And it worked. It was fun. It was fun, okay? So there's nothing on Rotten Tomatoes, but I gave it a 90 just for a fun freaking time at the movies. And I'll say one thing though, kind of like I already talked about. Some people might look at the look of the movie and downplay it. We need to get rid of that stereotype or that stigma, because there's a lot of people out there making films, and even if it looks like it's cheap, it doesn't mean it's cheap.